Things with 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross haven't always been sunshine and rainbows. Generally speaking, I like to be positive and optimistic on my channel, but I do also have to be realistic. This game isn't perfect, and there have been quite a few controversies over the years. So today, I'm going to go over 5 of the biggest missteps over the course of the game. Some are from the JPKR release, while others are from Global. I was around for most of these, but keep in mind that I did start in August of 2020, so if there were any other missteps in the early days of the game, aside from, well, the one obvious one that's going to pop on this list, please feel free to mention them in the comments. So, let's sit back, kick our feet up, and reminisce a little about the not-so-good old days, shall we? Let's start with our honorable mention. Tower of Trials for Global, and now Tower of Trials in general. This is kind of a gray area, but I feel like it deserves to be mentioned. So for roughly the first year of Global's existence, it was nebulously behind the JPKR version. This meant that we'd get content they got months ago. As Netmarble worked to catch us up to JPKR, we inevitably missed out on some content. Some of it wasn't a big deal. We never got a banner with a boosted draw rate for the 10 Commandments, for example. But apparently, we did miss out on some Tower of Trials. The way it used to be was we get them seasonally, much like how Labyrinth is now. And it wouldn't just be Super Awakening coins, we get gems and stuff too. This meant that Global missed out on a bunch of gems that JPKR got. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure if Netmarble made up for it or not. They said they do their best to give Global those opportunities, but I still hear people talking about how we've missed out. For me personally, this isn't really a big deal. It's a gacha game, and something had to be skipped. I feel like we got most of the important stuff, and frankly, I'd rather see Sin Final Boss reruns where we could get those costumes again instead of those missing towers. So, here's the funny thing about how I do these videos. I write these scripts well in advance. Add to that the fact that I ran into a patch where I couldn't record for much of March due to this and that, and this script got bumped and reworked several times over the course of a month and a half before I could finally start working on it and record it. And in that time, the end of March dev notes went up, stating that Tower of Trials would eventually be discontinued for new content. So, potential new future controversy? On the one hand, it's a bummer that we'll miss out on future rewards. On the other hand, are we really? The tower hasn't reset in over a year. They weren't really putting out new stages at this point. At least they've acknowledged that, yeah, this format isn't working and they need to do something different. I'm personally hopeful about this development, but I'm a glass half full kind of girl. Number 5, the attempted festival revamp. In 2021, Netmarble attempted to revamp festivals by having it so that the featured fest unit was the only fest unit on the festival banner. As a trade-off, the draw rate for it was much higher, 0.5%. For other fest units, they'd have it so for one day only, they'd appear on that general draw banner with boosted rates. Otherwise, they weren't in the pool. They had to be featured to be drawable. Is that a word? For our purposes, that's a word. And needless to say, this didn't go over well with people. The festival just wasn't that fun, to be honest. Netmarble realized that it was a misstep and reverted festivals to the way they were. And I will give them credit. They basically did note on Global that, hey, we tried this thing, it's not going over so well, but in the interest of fairness, we're doing it for you as well since we did it for JPKR. Honestly, it was a nice idea, but poorly executed. I get what they were trying for, but I wouldn't mind them doing that with certain seasonal units, but otherwise, meh. This ranks lower on the list for me because they rectified it fairly quickly, along with acknowledging that it wasn't good in practice. There really isn't that much else to say about it. Number 4, Blue Giramore. Okay, this one was extremely recent, and I mentioned it in my breakdown video, but I'm going to summarize it real quick for others who don't know or don't remember. Basically, Netmarble released a new Giramore unit in late 2022. He was a free unit that wasn't available in any draw pools, and was level 90 and fully awakened. His attack card also scaled based on his defense, and the thing was, you could boost his defense stupid high. If he managed to ult, the other team was screwed. He was fun. There were drawbacks, but he was fun. But Netmarble decided that they should nerf him and changed it so that his attack card scaled on his attack. They did this after people had already been messing around with him and had invested a lot of materials into him. Originally, the compensation wasn't all that much and people complained up a storm, which, honestly, that was good. I think it's good for us to be honest and talk about our complaints with the game in a normal manner, which is exactly what players did here. They were mad and review bombing Netmarble to get their attention, but they were also spelling out the issues with this move in a logical manner. They did what they had to get their attention and then said exactly what the problem was. The company was able to see what was wrong with it and what people's expectations were. People sank resources that are, quite frankly, hard to accumulate before Netmarble yanked the rug out from under them. This wasn't a case of there being a glitch and players sticking out their hands, demanding 300 apologems. Players genuinely got boned by this move, and Netmarble acknowledged that. It took them a couple of days, but they did fully compensate every player with these materials. Not just the players that use them, but every player. It was a good response. Number 3. Green Lilia on Global. Okay, so Green Lilia. She's not very good. Did a whole video on Lilia, go watch that. But when she first dropped on JPKR, they were able to get her for free. People were even able to get her 6/6 for free through events and stuff. However, when she came to Global in May of 2020, there were no free copies. This didn't go over well, obviously. And to be honest, this was before my time, so I don't really know if they really compensated players for it. I looked around and tried to see if I could figure out if they did or not, but I couldn't find anything. Apparently, they got a free collab character that JPKR didn't, but it was Benimaru, who also sucks and didn't have what amounted to a free cosmetics for a relevant character. Green Lilia later became a free loyalty reward on Blue Lilia's Step Up banner in June of 2020. And I know I got her for free in late August or September of 2020 through this disaster battle exchange. It was one of those events. But beyond that, it was just kind of not great. I'm glad I wasn't playing then, because that wouldn't have sat well with me. This is one of those occasions where the ending to the controversy is kind of like, one collaboration character for free versus 6 copies of a character for free? That's not really equivalent exchange. Number 2. Assault Mode Melios on Global. Netmarble said they wouldn't rush banners on Global in November of 2020. And then, right after the Festival King banner, the bad one, they wanted to release Assault Mode Melios in January of 2021, skipping the one festival banner entirely and pushing that back until later. We'd already had some issues with Netmarble jumping around and releasing units willy-nilly, but this was to the nth degree. Assault Mode Melios was the straw that broke the camel's back. It broke the camel's back so hard that whales like Seaton and Nagato said they wouldn't summon on the banner. And these were players that actually spent a lot of money on the game. The whales got the word out and organized a boycott, which caught Netmarble's attention. I mean, it had to with how hard the game was getting review bombed. This is another case where the player base revolted, but in a normal manner. This wasn't baseless complaining or people venting or whatever. This situation genuinely and truly sucked and looked to be leading the game down a particularly unfun path. The devs backtracked pretty quickly and Assault Mode Melios' banner was delayed. They swore from then on to release banners in order, focusing on getting Global caught up in terms of units so things weren't so shuffled about. Their dev note is basically the I see you, I hear you, I understand of apology dev notes. They really and truly messed up and were acknowledging as much. It's a good response. I don't entirely trust makers of gacha games since, they want your money. They're a business, they're not your friends. But I do feel like Netmarble understands that in order to get our money, their product needs to be good and they need to respect their customers. And in that respect, yeah, it was a good response. And number 1, Super Awakening on JPKR. So, let's talk about this. Super Awakening first came to JPKR in June of 2020. They released it up to 4-star Super Awakening with the coins and everything, where you could just use the Super Awakening coins or the Platinum coins. Except there was one teensy tiny little difference. Just a little difference. You could only upgrade them based on your alt level. So, let's say your Lost Vein was only 2-6. You couldn't upgrade him past level 2 Super Awakening. It didn't matter how many coins you had, you just couldn't. If a unit wasn't at least 4-6, you couldn't Super Awaken them all the way. This skewed the balance of the game heavily towards whales, since a lot of players would stop pulling after getting one copy, and rightfully so. People hated Super Awakening. Global players were dreading it. In August of 2020, they came up with a new system, which is what we have currently. You have to break this lock if you don't have the proper alt levels, and honestly, that's a fair solution. Free-to-play players can keep up with others in some respects. When it came to Global in November of 2020, we got the updated version that didn't have the dupe limit. Cool and all, but man, JPKR had to deal with this crap for at least 2 months. They were basically the beta testers. It was not a good precedent. Fortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, and not just because the gap between us has been narrowed immensely. I don't think any new features the game has released have been quite as imbalanced as that. Sure, holy relics are a whole thing, and Netmarble had to be called out on it in order for them to slow their roll on festival characters getting them. But this was by far the biggest one that had the most impact on gameplay as well as, well, people's enjoyment of the game. And that's it for my list. What would make yours? Are there any from the early days of the game that I wouldn't know about? Let me know in the comments below. As a trade-off, the draw rate for it was much higher. 5%. Oh my god, no. Can you imagine? 5%? Me. Nobody will be like, here, you get to go through, you get to go through, you get to go through.